Welcome, Truth Seeker. Glad you could tune in for this deep dive. We're jumping right in today, really pulling back the curtain, working from the perspective found in the Great Awakening report.
Yeah, and this dive is really built around you, the listener. We're tackling some of the most pressing questions that you've been sending our way.
That's right, all drawn directly from the latest Truth Seekers Q&A brief that came out.
And, we're not really here for the usual headlines of the surface stuff today. Our goal, using this source material as our guide, is to explore what it calls the age of deception.
And the global chaos that seems to be unfolding everywhere.
Exactly. Plus the death of the old paradigm and that really fundamental search for truth versus fiction right in the middle of everything.
It's a lot. So this deep dive, it's really designed to equip you with insights from the report. The idea is to help you navigate these, well, undeniably transformative times.
Right, with hopefully sharper discernment and a more, conscious perspective.
We've sifted through all those subscriber questions, picked out the ones that kept coming up this week, and we're going to see how the report connects these dots for us.
Okay, let's dive right into the Truth Seekers Q&A section from the brief then. These questions, they really capture the shifts people are feeling, aren't they? Pushing beyond the standard narrative.
Absolutely. And the first one, it's something we hear all the time from people just trying to make sense of it all. If it feels like elected leaders aren't really running the show,
Yeah.
well, who or what does the report suggest is actually in control? And how does it say this illusion is kept up?
Right. This is a really core theme. The report hits hard. It points to quite extensive testimony, stuff from people the report calls whistleblowers, intelligence insiders, investigative journalists, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And their accounts, which the report synthesizes, suggest there's this hidden, unelected network. A network of influence, really, operating behind the scenes.
A hidden network.
Yeah, it's what the report refers to using terms like, the deep state or maybe a shadow government.
And who does the report suggest is in this network? Who are the players?
Well, according to the report, it includes elements from powerful intelligence agencies, major global financial interests, big transnational corporations,
Okay.
significant players within the military-industrial complex, and also, importantly, legacy media institutions. The report stresses that this influence often goes beyond specific administrations or political parties. It's like a continuous hidden layer.
A continuous layer of control operating outside the public view.
Got it. So if that's who the report says is involved, how does it suggest they keep it hidden? How is this illusion maintained?
The report's pretty specific on the mechanisms.
Yeah.
It talks about the pervasive use of distraction, for one. Also, deliberate censorship of information that doesn't fit the narrative.
Censorship, yeah, we see discussions about that everywhere.
Right, and sophisticated psychological manipulation campaigns. According to the report, these tactics are used across lots of different platforms to basically shape public perception, get consent, but without real transparency or, democratic process. Okay, that framework makes sense within what the report is describing.
Yeah.
So for you listening right now, a truth seeker trying to see through all this, what guidance does the report offer? How do you pierce that veil?
The main guidance is really about cultivating discernment. That's presented as the primary tool. The report advises studying the big patterns, the overarching trends, rather than getting lost in, single fragmented events.
Seeing the forest, not just the trees.
Exactly. And crucially, it emphasizes a necessary shift in perspective, moving away from just relying on external sources, official channels, leaders for truth, moving towards internal sovereignty.
Internal sovereignty.
Yeah, developing your own capacity for critical observation, for knowing. Your personal discernment, the report basically says, is your most vital asset in all this.
Shifting that power of knowing back to the individual.
Yeah.
That really resonates with the conscious journey so many people seem to be on. Okay, that flows perfectly into the second question from the Q&A. The report talks a lot about this breakdown of public trust. Big institutions, media, science, government. What does it say this collapse of trust actually reveals about where we are right now on this timeline?
It's a fascinating take. The report argues this isn't just some, unfortunate accident or mistake. It's framed as a direct, almost inevitable consequence of hidden truths starting to surface.
So, not accidental, but predictable.
Kind of, yeah. Institutions that people used to just accept as authoritative, trustworthy. Well, the report says they're being increasingly exposed. Exposed for manipulation, maybe corruption, or for aligning with hidden agendas instead of the public good.
So the report sees this widespread distrust as a symptom, like something fundamental is being revealed.
Precisely. The report interprets this breakdown as a really strong signal, a signal of a collective awakening process that's underway. It's like a profound recalibration of our shared reality.
A recalibration.
Yeah, because as these foundational institutions are shown to be, compromised, more and more people are starting to question everything they've been told.
And the report notes that as people wrestle with that cognitive dissonance, that feeling when what you're told just doesn't match up with what you're seeing or feeling.
Exactly that dissonance. The report highlights a really significant trend. More and more people are turning away from mainstream programming. They're seeking out independent research, maybe spiritual alignment, connecting with grassroots communities. It's a powerful indicator, the report suggests, of where people are choosing to place their trust now, where they're looking for genuine understanding.
Okay, now here's where the questions honestly get a bit wild sometimes. The third question dives right in. Could this sudden rise of what seem like really outlandish or wild conspiracy theories? The report apparently gives examples like clone replacements or solar storms affecting our minds. Could these actually be part of some deeper strategy, maybe to awaken us?
Yeah.
Or maybe the opposite, to completely confuse us?
Yeah, this is a tricky area, and the report kind of approaches it by suggesting there's a dual possibility here. It acknowledges that some of these, really far-fetched narratives might contain kernels of truth, some element of reality buried in there.
Kernels of truth, but presented wildly.
Potentially. The report posits they could be deliberately presented in a way that actually discredits any underlying truth, maybe through huge exaggeration or satire, or mixing truth with total absurdity.
So it's like hiding the needle in this giant haystack of unbelievable stuff, making it really hard for people to find or even accept the real information.
That's one possible outcome the report points to, yeah. Confusing the public, making discernment way more challenging. But the report also points out another potential effect.
Okay.
As strange as these narratives can sound, just encountering them might actually spark curiosity. It could stimulate critical thinking in people who might otherwise just accept the mainstream story without a second thought.
And that critical thinking, that curiosity, the report sees those as absolutely vital traits for this awakening process, right?
Fundamentally, yes. So the report's key advice for you, the truth seeker encountering these kinds of narratives, is pretty crucial. It says, don't fall into the trap of just dismissing everything outright as nonsense.
Right.
But also, don't blindly believe everything without questioning it. The report suggests you need to consciously sit in that tension, that uncomfortable space between belief and disbelief.
Sit in the tension. That takes effort.
It does. Seek corroboration if you can. Tune into your intuition, your gut feeling, and importantly, observe how these narratives get introduced and notice how they seem to shape public perception. It's all about honing those discernment skills in a world that's just flooded with information.
Sitting in the tension. Not just reacting, but observing, discerning.
Yeah.
That requires a certain level of consciousness, doesn't it?
Okay. Moving to the fourth question. This really tapped into the global energy right now, that feeling of instability.
With all these overlapping crises happening at once, economic uncertainty, more censorship, weird weather patterns, breakdowns in leadership, is the report suggesting we're watching the engineered end of an old system? Or is this actually the turbulent beginning of a new era of consciousness?
And the report's answer to that is not really either. It's more like a profound both.
Both are happening simultaneously. How does the report explain that?
Well, it suggests that what looks like widespread chaos on the surface might actually be, from a higher perspective maybe, divine order in disguise. It details how the engineered collapse of old, unsustainable, centralized systems.
Like what specifically?
Like centralized banking, dependency on fossil fuels, the whole conventional political theater, that this collapse is actively happening. And according to the report, this whole process is being deliberately leveraged.
Leveraged by whom?
By different forces, both those trying to consolidate control and those working towards liberation, towards a new paradigm.
Wow, okay, so the crumbling of the old is actually a battlefield, in a way, used by opposing sides.
That's one way to look at it based on the report. But it also frames this exact same moment from a consciousness perspective. It says this marks not just the end of the old paradigm, which the report describes as rooted in control, fear, separation.
The old ways.
Yeah. But it's also the powerful emergence of what it calls a new frequency.
A new frequency. What does the report mean by that? What does it look like?
It's described as a state of being, one rooted in expanded awareness, a sense of interconnected unity, and individual sovereignty. And the report adds a really compelling thought here.
Which is?
The more individuals who awaken, who consciously choose to align with this new frequency, the faster and smoother this whole global transition could actually accelerate.
So individual consciousness plays a huge role in shaping the collective reality during these shifts.
Wow.
Okay, this leads perfectly into our final Q&A question.
Makes sense.
Given everything the report mentions, the manipulation, the energetic shifts, these collapsing narratives, how do we protect our mental and spiritual well-being through all this? It feels overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, and the report offers very practical guidance here. It really emphasizes that protection actually starts with awareness itself.
Just being aware.
Yes. Simply identifying and maybe naming the tactics of mind control, whether they come from media narratives, tech influence, psychological programming, just recognizing them significantly reduces their power over you.
Huh. So if you can see the strings, they can't pull you as easily.
Exactly. When you recognize the mechanism, it loses that subtle, unconscious grip it might have had. So recognizing the tactics is presented as the primary defense.
Okay, that's the mental side. What about the spiritual protection?
On that side, the report strongly advocates for grounding practices. Things like meditation, conscious breath work, spending time in nature, maybe prayer if that resonates.
The basics, really.
They might seem basic, but the report presents them as essential tools. Tools for anchoring your truth, your energy firmly within your heart. This prevents you from getting swept away by all the chaos and confusion in the external world.
Makes sense. Are there other critical steps the report recommends for staying centered?
Definitely. Limiting digital exposure is highlighted, being really mindful of the sheer volume and, maybe more importantly, the nature of the information you consume.
Like avoiding the fear-based stuff.
Yes. The report talks about consciously detoxing from fear-based content, which it says is designed to keep you in a low vibrational state. Practicing discernment in everything you encounter is key. And crucially, surrounding yourself with an aligned, conscious community.
Community support, yeah.
It provides essential backup, shared understanding, and reinforcement. These aren't just nice to haves. They're presented as pillars for building inner resilience.
Powerful pillars for sure.
They really are foundational. And the report wraps up this section with a statement that really sticks with you. Your consciousness is your firewall.
Your consciousness is your firewall.
Yeah. And your inner truth, that deep knowing inside you, is ultimately stronger and more reliable than any distortion or manipulation coming from the outside. It's all about cultivating and trusting that inner guidance system.
Your consciousness is your firewall. That line really does capture the essence of the report's message on personal protection, doesn't it? Okay, so we've unpacked the key questions from the Q&A brief. Now, let's step back a bit.
Yeah, connect the dots.
Exactly. As the report encourages us to do, let's connect these seemingly separate events into the larger narrative it presents.
Right. The connecting the dots section in the report does just that. It moves beyond the individual symptoms we talked about in the Q&A and helps us see the underlying pattern. It argues that what we're witnessing isn't just, a series of random crises.
It's something bigger.
It's a systemic unraveling of the old world order, happened at the same time as the conscious emergence of a completely new paradigm.
Okay, let's walk through the 5 key points the report outlines in this Connecting the Dots summary. First up, power without consent. The hidden hand exposed.
This builds right on our earlier discussion about the deep state. The report describes this hidden control system operating quietly, outside democratic consent through these entrenched bureaucracies, global alliances, intelligence network.
The unelected network we talked about.
Precisely. And it views the increasing exposure of this system, maybe through leaks, whistleblowers, as a really pivotal moment. According to the report, this exposure validates the intuition that many people have had for a long time.
The feeling that something's not right.
Yeah. And importantly, it helps liberate us from the belief that just changing political faces can fix a system that the report suggests is fundamentally corrupted. It forces us to ask, who is really governing? And by what authority, really?
It definitely challenges the surface reality of power. Okay, point 2 from the report. Institutional collapse as a catalyst for awakening.
Here, the report sees this widespread loss of trust we discussed in legacy media, mainstream science, government, not as just societal breakdown. It frames it more like the clearing before renewal.
A clearing, like clearing out the old brush.
Sort of, yeah. It frames this collapse as actively awakening millions of people to a truth it says has been suppressed. That external authority, no matter how convincing it looks, can never replace your own inner discernment, your sovereign knowing. It's a push towards self-reliance in truth.
Got it. Point 3. Between truth and fiction, the age of discernment. This seems to link back to those wild narratives.
Exactly. The report calls this time an age of discernment. It suggests that the explosion of extreme, sometimes surreal narratives is a symptom of a world where information is totally in flux, where the lines between truth and fiction are being deliberately blurred.
So what's the takeaway?
The crucial message here, according to the report, isn't to just blindly accept or dismiss everything. Instead, it calls for actively cultivating discernment, trusting your intuition, and really engaging in critical inquiry. These are framed as the essential skills you need to navigate this landscape.
Discernment as a necessary skill, not just a nice idea. Okay, point 4, breakdown or breakthrough, the death of the old paradigm. How does the report frame this feeling of global disorder?
Well, the report posits that these converging global crises, the economic pressures, governmental failures, those perceived environmental anomalies aren't just random chaos. It suggests they might be part of a process, maybe even an engineered one, designed to shatter the old paradigm.
The paradigm built on
Materialism, separation, centralized control. The report offers this really powerful reframe. The world isn't necessarily ending. Rather, the illusion of the old world is ending.
the illusion is ending.
Yeah. And in its place, a new way is emerging. A more decentralized, heart-centered way of living, aligned with a higher consciousness. The report even calls these turbulent times potentially the birth pangs of a consciousness upgrade.
Birth pangs of a consciousness upgrade. That puts a completely different spin on things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the final point, number 5 in connecting the dots, the inner firewall, how to stay awake in the storm.
This brings us back to personal well-being, but puts it in that bigger context of global transformation. The report really emphasizes that in this time, which it describes as an era of cognitive warfare.
Cognitive warfare, like information battles.
Yeah, psychological manipulation, information battles.
Yeah.
Alongside energetic shifts like solar upheaval and the constant influence of digital manipulation in this environment, your individual consciousness is your most powerful asset, full stop.
So what do we do with that consciousness?
The report states that maintaining grounded awareness, practicing spiritual discipline, managing your emotional state, these aren't just personal self-help practices anymore. They are framed as acts of resistance against control. Steps towards restoring an authentic reality. Staying awake, it says, means consciously reclaiming your energy, protecting your mind, and embodying the new frequency this global awakening demands.
The report's big picture summary really seems to pull all this together, describing this whole period as a kind of planetary initiation.
Yes, exactly. It frames this as a huge end-of-an-age moment for humanity, a time where truth, maybe long suppressed, is rising up, and these deeply ingrained illusions are just collapsing. The report suggests the collective soul of humanity is at this major choice point, deciding its next chapter.
A choice point.
And as it traces the path revealed by connecting all these dots, it describes a movement from darkness towards light, from control towards freedom, away from a programmed reality, towards truly awakened living. And the powerful conclusion it draws isn't about some fixed prophecy. It's about conscious choice, a choice that fundamentally begins with each one of us.
That perspective really adds a profound layer of personal responsibility onto the whole global narrative, doesn't it? So, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, looking at the Truth Seekers Weekly wrap-up section of the report, what are the absolute essential keys it highlights? Keys for, rising above the noise, breaking free from the matrix, as the report puts it, and aligning with this higher vibrational state of being.
The report outlines 4 specific key pillars for awakening. First, and it says this is foundational, let go of fear.
Let go of fear.
Yeah. The report identifies fear as the master key used for control over populations. So, releasing that fear, it states, is the very first act of reclaiming your sovereignty. It opens the door to real freedom.
Releasing fear as step 1 for sovereignty. Got it. What's the second pillar?
Practice forgiveness and emotional clearing. The report sees this as absolutely vital, necessary for unshackling yourself from the grip of the past. It suggests that forgiveness both of others and, importantly, of yourself dissolves that heavy energetic residue.
The stuff that keeps you stuck.
Exactly. Stuck in lower frequencies, past traumas. Forgiveness restores clarity, it suggests, and allows you to reclaim the personal power that was tied up in those old energies.
Makes sense. Clearing out that emotional and energetic baggage. Okay, the third pillar.
Meditation and transformational breathing. The report views conscious breathwork and meditation not just as, ways to relax. It sees them as powerful tools for achieving inner alignment, for expanding your awareness beyond just the physical senses,
Expanding awareness.
and for anchoring you in conscious presence, right here, right now, in each moment, which is absolutely key for discernment.
Bringing that conscious presence to bear on reality.
Yeah.
And the final pillar for awakening.
Live with the heart of a volunteer. This one's about embodiment, how you actually live it. The report encourages you to lead your life with authenticity, to be of service to others in meaningful ways, and to operate from a place of ideally unconditional love. It frames embodying values like integrity and compassion in all your interactions as a way to actively build the new paradigm, one conscious action, one conscious choice at a time.
The report leaves us with a really powerful image to think about, doesn't it? It says, you're either outside acting in the movie or going within to watch it consciously.
Yeah, it brings it right back to that fundamental choice of perspective, doesn't it? Are you totally caught up in the external drama, reacting to everything? Or are you anchored in your inner awareness, observing, discerning, choosing your response?
Exactly. And based on everything we've explored from this report today, it kind of leaves us and you, the listener, with some pretty piercing questions to reflect on. So which role are you playing right now? As you navigate these times, are you mainly being pulled around by fear? Or are you managing to stay grounded in peace, mostly? Do you feel caught up in all the external chaos? Or are you finding ways to stay anchored in your own conscious presence?
It's powerful stuff. The perspective shared in this report really frames the current global situation not merely as random chaos, but as this monumental transition, a shift from an old paradigm built on control and separation towards a new era, one characterized by greater awareness, unity, conscious living. It's described as a planetary initiation where illusions are being challenged, truth is surfacing. And the report suggests the path forward from darkness to light, control to freedom, programmed reality to awakened living is ultimately a conscious choice.
A choice available to each individual.
Exactly, starting right where you are, right now.
The choice that begins with you. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive today, exploring these concepts drawn straight from the source material.
Yeah, and we really hope this exploration of the report's insights helps illuminate your own path forward and maybe reinforces the vital role of your personal consciousness, your discernment, in navigating these really complex but also incredibly fascinating times.
Absolutely. Until our next deep dive, keep seeking truth, keep connecting the dots both within yourself and in the world around you, and above all, stay anchored in your own inner truth.